I should have never gone back to those woods. Even now, as I speak these words, I can still feel the damp earth under my boots, hear the whisper of the trees bending in the wind, and see those glowing eyes that should not exist in any living thing. But let me start from the beginning, so you understand why I will never step foot in the forest again. It was late autumn when I returned to the cabin my grandfather built decades ago. The place had been abandoned since his death, swallowed slowly by moss and silence. The locals in the nearby town never spoke of it directly. They called the woods cursed. Some said hunters went missing there. Others swore they heard engines roaring in the night, though no one lived within miles. I thought it was all superstition, stories meant to keep kids from wandering too far. I was wrong. The cabin was small, its roof sagging, its windows covered in grime. Inside, the air was stale, carrying the bitter stench of rot and wet wood. Still, I felt an odd comfort being there. It was isolated, quiet. I told myself a weekend alone would clear my head. I didn't realize solitude was the first mistake. The first night, I lay awake in the cabin, listening to the forest. At first, it was normal. The chirp of crickets, the rustle of branches. Then, everything stopped. The silence was so heavy, I could hear the thudding of my own heartbeat. That's when I heard it, a low hum, distant at first, but steady. It sounded like an engine. A chainsaw, maybe, grinding somewhere deep between the trees. I froze. No one should have been out there. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, that maybe the sound carried from the town, though it was miles away. But then came the smell, burnt oil and gasoline, sharp and wrong in the damp forest air. It drifted through the cracks of the cabin walls, sour on my tongue, impossible to ignore. The hum faded after a few minutes, leaving me alone with silence once more. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I decided to shake off the unease. I took a walk through the woods, following the trails I used to explore as a kid. The trees were taller now, their trunks thick and their branches intertwined like prison bars. Sunlight struggled to break through, leaving most of the forest drowning in shadows. That's when I noticed something carved into a tree. Deep grooves, jagged and deliberate, running across the bark. They weren't made by an animal. They looked like the teeth of a saw, tearing through the wood with unnatural precision. I pressed my hand against the scarred trunk and felt something sticky. It wasn't sap, it was darker. I stepped back, my chest tight. That's when I saw it. Far between the trees, half hidden in the mist, stood a figure, motionless, watching. His eyes glowed faintly, like embers, piercing through the gloom, and in his hands, heavy and silent for now, hung a chainsaw. I should have run the moment I saw him. Any sane person would have. But fear does strange things. It freezes you, makes you question if what you're seeing is real. Maybe it was just a trick of the light, I told myself. Maybe exhaustion was playing with my mind. But when I blinked, the figure was still there, unmoving, those glowing eyes locked onto me. I backed away slowly, trying not to make a sound. The forest seemed to close in, every tree leaning closer, suffocating me with shadow. Then, without warning, the silence shattered. The chainsaw roared to life. The sound was monstrous, louder than anything I'd ever heard, echoing through the woods like thunder. Birds erupted from the treetops in a frenzy, but I couldn't move. My legs felt nailed to the ground as the man stepped forward. Each stride was deliberate, heavy, like he had all the time in the world. Finally, instinct took over. I ran. Branches clawed at my face and arms, tearing at my skin as I sprinted blindly through the undergrowth. The chainsaw's growl followed me, closer and closer, as if the machine itself was hunting me. My lungs burned, my heart hammered, and still the forest stretched endlessly. No path, no clearing, just darkness pressing in. At one point, I stumbled, crashing hard into the earth. For a moment, the world spun, and I tasted blood. When I looked up, I expected him to be standing right above me, saw raised high. But the sound was gone. The forest was silent again. I pushed myself to my feet, trembling, and listened. Nothing, not even the usual rustle of leaves. It was like the entire forest was holding its breath, waiting. I staggered back toward the cabin, desperate for the illusion of safety. When I finally burst through the door, I locked it behind me, pressing my body against the wood as if that could keep him out. My ears rang with phantom echoes of the chainsaw. But minutes passed, hours, no footsteps, no roar of an engine. Maybe I'd lost him. That night, I lit a single candle and sat in the corner watching the shadows crawl across the walls. I tried to convince myself it was over, that I had just imagined it. But then I heard it again, soft at first, like a whisper. The engine, not outside, inside. I froze, candlelight flickering in my shaking hand. The sound was faint, muffled, but definitely within the cabin. I searched the room, the floorboards, the walls. That's when I noticed the smell again, oil and gasoline, thick and nauseating. It seeped from the cracks in the wood, rising from the very foundation. My grandfather had built this cabin. What if he had known? What if this thing had always been here? The candle flickered violently, and for a split second, I thought I saw him in the corner of the room, crouched, watching me with those burning eyes. But when I blinked, the space was empty. The engine went silent, and then I heard the slow, dragging sound of metal teeth scraping against the floorboards, moving closer. I didn't move. I couldn't. The sound of metal teeth scratching across the floorboards grew louder, closer, steady, as if someone was dragging the chainsaw just inches away from me. But the room was empty, at least empty to my eyes. The candle sputtered and died, plunging me into absolute blackness. My breath came in sharp, shallow gasps. I could taste the smoke of the wick lingering in the air, mixing with that stench of gasoline until it choked me. Somewhere in the dark, wood creaked under the weight of footsteps, slow, heavy, coming straight toward me. I pressed my back against the wall, my palms sweating, every nerve in my body screaming to run. But where? The door? The forest? It didn't matter. He was everywhere. I shut my eyes tight, like a child hiding from a nightmare, praying it would end. And then, silence. For a moment, I thought it was over. But when I opened my eyes, faint light spilled through the cracks of the window. Moonlight. Enough to show me what was standing in the center of the room. He was there, the hunter. His face was grotesque, twisted with scars and grime, his eyes glowing like coals in a dying fire. He held the chainsaw loosely at his side, yet it was his presence, his absolute stillness, that paralyzed me. He didn't need to swing the blade. He didn't need to move. Just knowing he was there drained every ounce of strength from me. I don't remember making the decision to run, but suddenly my legs carried me toward the window. Glass shattered as I hurled myself through, cutting deep into my arms and shoulders, but I didn't care. Pain meant I was still alive. I stumbled into the forest, bleeding, gasping, every shadow a threat. Behind me, the chainsaw roared back to life. The sound shook the ground beneath my feet, filling the night with its mechanical scream. I ran harder than I ever had in my life, heart exploding in my chest, lungs burning with each ragged breath. Branches whipped against my face, the forest tearing me apart as I pushed forward. But the engine never faded. It followed, relentless, always just a few steps behind. I don't know how long I ran. Time dissolved into noise, fear, and pain. Eventually, my legs gave out, and I collapsed onto the forest floor. For a moment, there was only silence. No chainsaw, no footsteps, just the wind. I looked up, hoping, praying to see the first hints of dawn. Instead, I saw him, standing among the trees, watching, the chainsaw silent now, but in his hands all the same. And then he did something I will never forget. He lifted his free hand and pointed directly at me. Not charging, not swinging, just pointing as if marking me, claiming me. The woods fell silent again, but I knew I wasn't free. I would never be free, because once the forest hunter has seen you, he never stops hunting.
Subscribe to Horror Story Bar.